Hitapu, Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Haroon Nefer. This is Kasank Mahakeparu with another broadcast for you. And in this broadcast, I want to talk about how the oracles reveal your deepest secrets. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. And if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. Also, we do have free ebooks that expand on my spiritual knowledge and wisdom. You can just click on the links below and download the ebooks and start reading right away. And if you haven't already become a supporter of ours on Patreon, please consider doing so. You can do so for as little as $1, $5, $20 per month, and you'll get exclusive access to instructional videos on how to meditate, how to perform a ritual, how to put together an amulet, how to read the oracles, which is very, very important. So consider becoming a Patreon supporter. You can cancel, of course, at any time. So, Haroon Nefer, and welcome to this broadcast, which will be an interesting short broadcast, but it's something I wanted to kind of talk about. There is a hexagram in the Great I Ching Oracle, which is based on the Tao Te Ching and the Taoism, what many monks and Buddhist monks study. We equate that to understanding the way. There's a hexagram in the I Ching which talks about honor the man, or honor the sage, or honor the diviner, for he understands the structure or foundation upon which society is built. Now, I remember when I was sitting with my high priest, and I was very, very cautious because I was not a stupid individual. I knew that the man could find out things if he wanted to, very easily, about what I was doing, if I was lying. I mean, there was one instance in particular where he was ready to kick me out of priesthood because there was some things I was doing that weren't negative things, but I wasn't following the rules exactly, and I knew that I couldn't come at him with a very poor excuse or an excuse. I had to be honest in the front because he's a diviner. He could have just did cast the oracles and found out what exactly I was doing, if I was telling the truth or not. And I think a lot of people, we're brought up in society not to respect sages and diviners. Instead, we're brought up to venerate charlatans, such as your pimp pastors and your ministers, or sport figures and athletes. Give them a bunch of money and accolades, but they don't have any real wisdom they can pass on to us. And in fact, these are things that Caesar puts in front of us, so Caesar can distract us from really looking at society and saying, wow, we're in bad shape. You know what I mean? Because when you are a diviner, meaning you know how to read the oracles give you an insight as to, I don't want to say the skeletal structure of society, but the underpinnings of society, if it was built on firm foundation, which is why when you look at the, and it's so appropriate, when you look at the tarot, there's the tower card, tower of, where it was based on the biblical Tower of Babel, or Babylon, or Tower of Babel, where they were building this tower to reach God, and then they all fell and then landed and all spoke different languages. Well, that tower is really the obelisk, or the phallus symbol of Osir. But what it really represents is, because you'll see it as though it gets, in some depictions, depending on what deck you're reading, like the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, or others, you may see it being hit by a bolt of lightning and it falling apart and people are falling off the tower. So what this is indicating is that what you've built is not on firm foundation, is going to come crumbling down. And that's exactly the way we can see society now. And it's been done purposely by the 1%, the ruling elite that has control of the wealth, the resources, the information. Because basically what they are doing is dumbing down society and retarding our progress. They don't want us to be intellectually astute, but we think we are. You see, we're very, very defiant in our ignorance. We profess to be very intelligent, but we're not really when it gets down to it. And a lot of times I'll have individuals come before me to do an oracle reading, and they'll ask certain questions, or they may not asking questions at all, but I can really get to the heart of the matter, and I can see what's going on. And in many instances, I see like a lot of disturbing patterns. And it's not specifically just related to them, but the patterns are caused by society at large, what we call as social engineering. And I can see how people have drank the Kool-Aid, or the flavor aid, as Jim Jones dispersed it to the people. And When you see that, you can see the signs of a society that's going to fall apart. But more importantly, because I'm more concerned about the individuals that I'm working with, and many of them don't even realize the level and depth of their own ignorance, and they do think they can lie and get away with things, and for example, if they're in a relationship, it's always never their fault. It's always their partner's fault. So when you come to an oracle, you have to be ready to submit and really listen to the consultation. I remember the very first oracle reading I had done was by he was a Yoruba priest, and it was set up, and it was a very elaborate reading too, very elaborate. And it was followed by a ritual. And I remember him going off on some things, and I just had to put the brakes on. I was like, "Whoa, slow down." He was like, "You're gonna marry two women. This is gonna happen." This is gonna say, "Whoa!" And the reason why was because it was a lot for me to swallow, and I wasn't ready for that. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously he was correct, but a lot of people aren't ready to hear the truth. But that's what these diviners are here for. They're here to really just give you that truth pill, and you have to be ready to accept it. Unfortunately, as a society, we haven't grown um, emotionally to the point of where we're able to take on this bad news because we internalize it and personalize it so much. And again, this is not all our fault because you have a society that when you do something wrong, especially in the educational system, they put a lot of blame on you, but they never hold the system accountable because you know how the old African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, we never put the onus or responsibility back on society. For example, society was wrong for distributing crack cocaine in minority communities. We know that happened. We know the CIA was involved in that. So, but they've never, been held accountable for that. We know society at large is responsible for racism, and it's still perpetuating, goes on today, but yet they don't want to be held responsible for that. Do you understand what I mean? So when you were in ancient Kemet and readings were done, it was the priesthood that kept a check on the nation, the society, and made sure that it was going in the right direction because they were the ones that were first forewarned because they would do the readings and they can see if there was going to be unrest among the people. You know, if certain laws um, were going to be readily accepted, or would there be a rebellion or an uprising? They could see that in the reading. Are the people headed toward more of a moral culture? This is why, and most scholars will agree that Egypt was the most morally upright society there ever was, because they place a high value on ma'at, on truth and justice. They were not playing games. They were trying to live a spiritual life. In fact, when you train to be a diviner, and this is what I gathered out of my meditation last night. I had to remind myself. I went into a deep state of trance and meditation and came out. And in that meditation, it told me, Kasanka, you've got to be impartial. You can't be taking sides. And I know how much you want to take a side because you know that taking that side is a side of truth, but you are a diviner. You have to give the information. You have to give the wisdom out there in an impartial way and not be invested in the outcome. And that's absolutely true. That's when you get the higher spiritual knowledge. This is why those who are practicing and living according to the Bible are nincompoops. They're spiritually bankrupt. They're intellectually bankrupt. They don't know anything. When you start studying Taoism and you read the Tao Te Ching, you're reading something that's so spiritually evolved and upright. It may be hard to you to fathom. You may not even understand it. Very difficult. So, people come, they ask for reading, and I start seeing these patterns, and I start to get really concerned. But then again, I just have to take a back seat. And the oracle says, "Listen, Kasak, you know that where things are going. You know it's not going good. The best you can do is put the information out there and see if they will digest it and act upon it." You know, one of the things I talked about in previous videos was the idea of social engineering and how these think tank institutions like the Rockefeller Foundation, Tavistock, Council on Foreign Relations, that they determine where they want the culture to go in 50 and 100 years, and they're hell bent on making on emasculating males. So when I do my readings, I can see right away where I'm getting these consistent themes with every man I do a reading on, where he's overly emotional, less focused on intellectual pursuits or logic, very, very emotional. And like, and you can see that by be working with the tarot when you have someone that comes up with a lot of cups. Cups are water. Cups are emotional. And I'm seeing all these cups coming up. I'm like, well, this is not, because there is a template of the right type of reading you should get, and you should not be getting readings full of cups. If you're a man, that's way too emotional. In the same vein, when I do readings with women, and I actually saw this first, where I'm coming up with a lot of fire elements. I'm saying, why does this fire element keep coming up? One woman in New York, I remember coming up with like almost the entire spread was fire, and I told her, I said, you're in physical, you're in like whoever it is you're dealing with. There is some physicality going on there, and that should not be the case. You got way too much fire, and it's not good, because that fire, it really, it burns up the body and quick, and you have a less lifespan expectancy, which is why men who are in pursuits like war, and they're police officers, firemen, they don't have a long life expectancy, because that adrenaline, that pumping of adrenaline, that fire energy does take a toll on you eventually. So when we see these things as diviners, we've got to raise a red flag and say, what's going on here? Because there are elements, this is alchemy we're dealing with here, that you as a man should have and possess and should be working with. But you have a society that's hell bent on destroying the people, because they want to depopulate the planet. So what they'll do is they'll tell you it's okay for a man to have a lot of cups. No, that's being out of balance. It's not okay for a man to be expressing emotionalism so much. And I can see this when I'm having discourses with different men, and they find that they get to a point in the argument where they're losing. Their only retort is to get emotional, but not really offer up a good rebuttal. And I sit there baffled, going, "How do we get from point A to Z when you're acting all emotional?" Because you're wrong. That's what it is. And you have to understand that that's okay to be wrong. There should never be a cause for emotional reaction. But again, we have a society that endorses that, because they know, the ruling elite, they work with oracles themselves. They work with spirits themselves. So they know what's right. And they're guiding the nation in this direction and the planet for a specific purpose. Because they know when you do these role reversals, and it's not necessarily a role reversal, but I'm just giving you an example, that you mess up the natural order of things start to go out of whack. And consequently, you'll pull the tower card where things are going to fall apart. And they want it to fall apart. They know, because they do what they call the totalitarian tiptoe: problem, reaction, solution. Problem, genders can't get along. Well, they caused that problem. They know they did. Solution, they want to get rid of genders, get rid of binaries. But if you are a diviner, you can see these things coming at you, which is why when I counsel couples, I warn them. I say, listen, you guys need to understand and come together. And I give them mantras that will invoke the right energy within them, so it can bring them back to balance. But see, society, when you go to a modern counselor, everything's always slanted in favor of the female, of course. And that's a problem in and of itself that we can do another video on. But they quickly assign a right and a wrong to things, but they don't understand that this is about bringing things back into balance, and that within the individuals you're dealing with, that's the microcosm of the macrocosm. So you have to really start to look at that. And in fact, if you understand African culture, you could not be a king in Africa unless you first prove that you had a family that was prosperous. You had to have a family, because the family was seen as a kind of like the nation was an extension of the family. If you could have a harmonious family where you didn't cheat on your wife, your kids were educated, they were well mannered, then they knew that you were right for kingship. If you weren't married and you were 50 years old or whatever, they had questions. And they're like, all right, what's up? Why are you not married? What's going on here? And then you would have to go before the diviner, and the diviner would do the reading and say, listen, you're out of whack here. Let's bring you back into balance. Let's give you some mantras. So anytime I'm working with other diviners, I give them the highest level of respect because I know they're privy to things that you and I can't see. In the same way, when individuals work with me, they know I can see directly into what's going on in their lives through the oracles. And diviners should never use that information or abuse the trust of their clients. But the thing I want you to know and understand is that there is a structure beyond what you can see. It's like the iceberg. The iceberg, you see the tip of the iceberg above the water, but below the water, there is the majority of it. What holds up this society, this nation, is bigger than what you can see. And the only way to understand how to bring it into balance is to go to a diviner to see the energy systems at play, the energy systems at work, and what's not jiving right, what's not working right. And then to bring that back into a balanced state. You see a lot of couples, they come before reading and they want the diviner to say, she's right, he's wrong, But that's not what the diviner is there for. They're not there to say one is right, one is wrong, so that one can get up and celebrate. That's not what it's about. It's about making sure that you two have a happy and harmonious relationship. And the only way to understand that is to see what you cannot see. And some diviners don't even need oracles. They have their third eye they operating at. So just by merely talking with them, they can intuit and understand what you're going through and can give you counsel based on that third eye. But those diviners are few and far between because the society doesn't support the study of that. It doesn't support you delving into the third eye and nurturing that aspect of you and bringing it to fruition to where you become a living, breathing, walking oracle. And when you do so, you must understand the society that you're dealing with that is not going to reward you for that work. In fact, many times the society will curse you for that because this society does not want to live. Here's the thing. Here's the thing that I had to come to grips with. When I studied spiritual culture, and I started to awakening to a higher level of spiritual knowledge. I'm talking about, like we talked about, getting into the wisdom of our ancestors, the Medunate, the hieroglyphics, the Tao Te Ching. Studying and working with light beings, I began to realize that you're dealing with a corrupt society that is in no way, shape, or form going to back what you're doing. And the one thing that they will do that you can rest assured is try and put you through hell. That's what they want to do. Because the society, and I'm speaking about the individuals within the society, not the 1% now, because they're hidden and you don't directly see their influence, but I'm talking about the peons that do their bidding. They're the ones that don't want us to be spiritually elevated. And they don't care about your spiritual work. And the reason why is because they're mentally ill themselves. Because if they were mentally balanced and aligned properly, then they would come with a level of respect towards you for doing your spiritual work. I have friends and family members when I'm writing articles or when I'm, really doing some deep research and uncovering something, they're like, oh, whatever. Okay, what would you say you do again? Well, yeah, what do you do? I said, you've known me for 20 years and you tell me you don't know what I do? That's the type of a society we live in. You know what I mean? And you just have to come to grips with that and understand that you're not going to get any rewards for living a spiritual life. You're not. Because this is not how the society rolls. The minute you start studying the I Ching and it awakens you. And I really laugh at some of these individuals, especially this younger crowd, and they'll get into Kinetic Culture, and they're not really learning Kinetic Culture, but they think it is. So let them keep thinking it is. And they're like, I'm woke, I'm woke. I said, well, have you read the Tao Te Ching? No. Have you read the I Ching? No. Have you read the Monadnock? No. Well, how are you saying you're woke? Have you read the Bhagavad Gita? No. Well, how are you saying you're woke? I'm not. Clue me in. You must have some. You must be like reading something from the Akashic records that I don't know about. Have you read the Hermetic tablets? No. And you awoke. Why would you even think you awoke? And this is the level of arrogance and stupidity that we're dealing with in our society. Pure ignorance, pure stupidity. Deaf, dumb, and blind. You cannot argue with someone like that because they actually think they're in the right. Had an argument with a young brother the other day, and I wasn't arguing. I just kind of told him, I said, listen, he's firmly convinced that going around and yelling and screaming about how evil white people are. I said, brother, the Kemetic people never taught anything like that. I said, if you want a well-balanced and well-structured society, you can't go around calling one half of that society evil and corrupt. You can't. He said, well, they did wrong. I go, yeah, they did do wrong. But your job is to bring back balance. What do you think you're going to accomplish by running around yelling and calling them names? Nothing. Oh, yeah, it appeases your emotional side because you're overly emotional. But then when you spend a number of years doing that and that fire energy has died out, you're going to come back and come right back to me and ask, how do we solve this problem? I said, okay, now we can talk because you're calm now. I talk to women so damn emotional. You got women that come along and they cherry pick what they want to hear. They got their man trying to talk to them and they refuse to talk to their man. They refuse to come to the table. I said, listen, your man is really saying some really good stuff about how he wants to work with you in a relationship, but you all caught up in the baggage of a previous relationship and you're not really listening. You're not really hearing him. You got too much fire. Turn that down. Do you want him to leave? Because that's exactly what you're doing. And believe me, I can break this down about how society has socially engineered women to not want to be in a relationship, to sabotage the relationship. I can break it down how society has engineered Black people to be their own worst enemy. Black people have a self-destruct mechanism. They don't have to worry about racism. They're going to destroy themselves. But the point is to help people. You're dealing with an illness in the body. There's no point in cursing the body, yelling at the body, calling it names. You have got to give it an ailment. You look at the ailment, you got to give it something so that it becomes balanced again. And I'm talking about a holistic prescription. I'm not talking about, a Western medicine that just gets rid of the symptoms. You've got to get to the root cause of it and say, what's really causing this illness? And let's solve the problem. And our society is famous for addressing the symptoms and not the cause, putting a Band-Aid on it. That's only a temporary fix, just hiding it from purview. This is how we deal with society. We put on shows, we put on superficial trinkets to make you think that there is some type of advancement, but really behind the scenes it's still falling apart. And I think, see, when you start dealing with truth and the underpinnings of how things work and understanding it, then you'll know that you cannot address the situations that we're dealing with from a Western left brain mind perspective, because that only just addresses, like I said, the symptoms. Our society doesn't pride itself on Chinese medicine, on holistic medicine, because holistic medicine balances you and make you whole. Western psychology is only bent on placing blame on one end, caught up again in the Hegelian dialectic, that there has to be an opposing force. And then when you punish that opposing force, that actually means that you now receive some measure of justice. That's not true. That's not true, because that other individual that you punish will come back at you because he's bitter, he's upset, and all you did was aggravate the situation. You have to have a lasting solution that where both parties walk away happy from the table. But we don't know how to do that. And I tell people time and time again that the only solution that you're going to be able to enact is the oracles. Go to the oracle and ask God, how do we solve this problem? Because your left brain is going to attack the problem from a very topical perspective or a very superficial perspective. It's the left brain is the immediate mind. It's the short term. You can only see what's in front of you. You can't see long term down the road on how a decision right now affects things later, years later. Left brain can't see that. The conscious mind can't see that. It's the right brain which gives you the full picture. This is why in I Ching, the right brain is symbolized by the tower, which is the 20th hexagram, meaning you have a view of the whole, not just a limited view. So when someone comes along and they're a master at the oracles, you have to give them respect and praise because they're the ones that can help us get out of the situation we're in with society. There's a reason why society really casts aspersions on the fact that you are an oracle reader. They don't like you. They don't want to like you. There's a reason why the major Western religions vilify oracle or diviners, because you hold the key to saving society. See, they're going in one direction, which is the tower card to bring it all down. And you're going in another direction, which is repair, unity, love. They don't want you. And if they could have it their way, they would kill you and get rid of you. You see what I'm saying? So I'm saying this not to present a doom and gloom version of the future, but I'm warning you and letting you know that you're not going to get any accolades, any praise for trying to help society. The very people, and I can attest to this with my own life, the very people you're trying to help are going to spit in your face. They're going to walk all over you. And you just got to learn to practice your, what we call it is the Monadnock Ma'at. That means keeping the heart still to live truth, not being emotional. I mean, I sit there, talk to people, and they're so dumb. It's just amazing. And I'm just sitting there, I'm talking with them, and I go, I can't believe this son of a bitch is so dumb. Oh, hey, yeah. 36 hexagram in the I Ching, not getting support. But you got to hide your light. 36 hexagram, I Ching, hide your light. Meaning you just bite your tongue, go with the flow. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, stupid motherfucker. Yeah. And just let them walk off the cliff. The tarot card, the fool, not looking where he's going. He's going to walk off that cliff. Let them go. Let them go. The emperor has no clothes. Can you not see it? The Pied Piper leading you off the cliff. Let them lead them. Let them go. Yes, you present the truth. You do the reading for them. But if they choose to ignore it and still follow the Pied Piper, let them reap let them reap what they sow. That's all you can do. But trust and believe. There is one person who will always have your back, who will give you praise and accolades for doing your spiritual work. That's not me. That's God. That's God. You may not see it, may not recognize it, may not know it, but she is in your corner. Will always be there at your highest, at your lowest, when you curse him, her, when you ignore him, her, when you get upset at him, her for not giving you money or giving you the girl of your dreams or the boy of your dreams or man of your dreams. She will always have your back through thick and thin. More dedicated than your wife, your husband, your dog, your cat, your robot. More dedicated than all of those. God will always be there for you, and God won't lie to you. This is Kasak Ma Keparu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. My aunt is a beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, Amin Ra.